With 6 teams on bye, the quarterback and tight end position are looking very thin for week 8. But if you're sitting with Drake Maye, or Bo Nix, or Jaxson Dart, you have a top 10 play on your hand. We reveal our full quarterback and tight end rankings for week 8 on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst for NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL, fantasy, and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Today, we are getting into our quarterback and tight end rankings for week 8. We'll start with our quarterbacks and then get into tight ends later on in the show. Now, we have 6 teams on bye, so lots of quarterbacks off this week. Includes Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford, Sam Darnold, Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence, and Geno Smith. Plus, we're dealing with some injuries to Lamar Jackson. We have to see if he'll come back. He's not practicing yet after the bye. Jaden Daniels could miss time. Bryce Young could miss time. And then Justin Fields could be benched. So lots of question marks around these quarterbacks this week. So let's start at the top of our rankings. And it starts great for like the first, 10 guys. And then it quickly cools off here with thin positional rankings this week. But number 1, Patrick Mahomes for both of us. We actually have the same top 8 quarterbacks in a slightly different order, so I'll just run through those. I have Patrick Mahomes 1, Josh Allen 2, Jalen Hurts 3, Lamar Jackson 4, Baker Mayfield 5, Dak Prescott 6, Drake Maye 7, and Bo Nix 8. While yours goes Mahomes, Hurts, Allen, Lamar, Drake Maye, Bo Nix, Baker Mayfield, Dak Prescott for your top 8. Now, again, we don't know if Lamar Jackson is playing, but if he plays, you play him. But let's talk about these 3 guys, Drake Maye, Bo Nix, and Dak Prescott. Tell everyone why you feel so confident about them this week.
Yeah, Drake Maye, you might look at the matchup and say, oh, no, he's against the Browns. But he's been on a heater. We know what he did in New Orleans, what he did against the Titans as well on the road. He comes back home. We know the Browns defense not as good away from Cleveland. They're just gangbusters, hard to do anything against them in Cleveland. But when they get away, I don't know what happens. Maybe they're away from the lake and people are just moving the ball a little bit easier on them. But they do also give up a lot of big plays, which is great for Drake Maye. He's thrown all those beauties to Kayshon Boutte. So we know every time that punt is made. But it's fun because he's throwing the ball downfield. He's aggressive. Stephon Diggs is not the only weapon. He's finding extra tight ends. And also, it's hard to run on the Browns. You cannot do that as easily as they did last week where Stevenson was just getting big chunks against the Titans. That's not going to happen this week. So Drake Maye's going to have to put it up. He's going to have to create with his legs. That was a good development to see last week as well. The kid can run. Let him run. Do some things there to really get our numbers up. But look, the passing alone has been awesome. So I'm not going to do anything with Drake Maye except keep starting him if I haven't.
Yeah, Drake Maye, don't worry about the Browns matchup because it's in New England. If it was at Cleveland, maybe, but the Browns defense is not the same on the road. Bo Nix against these Cowboys. I mean, Bo Nix at home the last 2 games, 26 points and 40 points, 3 touchdowns in both of those. And the Cowboys are giving up by far the most fantasy points per game.
Easy start, yeah.
Easy. And then on the opposite side with Dak Prescott, like we were worried about the Broncos defense at home last week for Jaxson Dart, and Jaxson Dart took care of business. So there's no reason Dak can't do the same thing this week.
Yeah, I think there's going to be volume for Dak, even if it's a bit of a struggle, even if they take away George Pickens a little bit in the deep ball, which could have happened in this game. That didn't need him really last week, but Pickens, we'll get into the wide receiver rankings. It's not the best spot for him, but CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson, that's all he needs, right? He just needs 2 guys to keep smashing it, somebody else to get it done. We'd like to see Dak do a little bit more running in the red zone. He found it a few weeks ago, but it would be great if he could score that way as well. But this should be another high-scoring game. It's in the prime window here, so it should be another show here. So I think the Broncos might need to score 33 points or more to win this game as well, with the Cowboys just going everywhere and creating shootouts. So I think the Cowboys, again, come in more confident. And, again, they're getting close to playoff contention, and I think they can have any shot to win this game as much as the Broncos do at home.
Yeah, for sure. Now, my number 9 quarterback is Jaxson Dart against the Eagles, even though it's on the road. But you're right there with me pretty much. You have him at quarterback 10 behind Daniel Jones, who we'll get to in a minute. But I mean, Jaxson Dart in 3 of his 4 starts, 20 plus fantasy points. The last 2 weeks, it's been 23 and 28 fantasy points. If he can do it on the road against the Broncos, I just don't think we could be that worried about matchups, right? And he just faced this Eagles defense where he put up the 23 fantasy points. Now that was at home, but I mean, the Eagles aren't this dominant defense like they were last year.
Yeah, Jaxson Dart, look, he's compiling, and we loved him as a deep sleeper. The only question was he ever going to start? When was he going to start over Russell Wilson? Well, that didn't take very long because you just had to see Russell Wilson play, and then you got evidence that you need to play Jaxson Dart. So Brian Dable's done that. He's protective of him. He wants everything to go well for Jaxson Dart. It's Philadelphia, and what I like about Philadelphia is they can't run the ball, so this could be a passing game for the Eagles. That means it might be a passing game for the Giants. I don't care. Again, Jaxson Dart can throw the ball right into the defender's hands. I don't care. He's going to keep throwing. He's got a short memory for a quarterback. It's a good thing for a rookie. He's going to keep compiling. So, yeah, he reminds me a lot, actually, of Jalen Hurts. When he first got that starting opportunity with the Eagles, there were several games in a row immediately where you could start him. Started with the running, but then evolved into his downfield passing. So Dart might be headed to a Hurts-like career here.
I know. It's really, really fun to watch him play. So we want him to keep running. That's for sure. Now, Daniel Jones, you as your quarterback 9. I'm not far behind at quarterback 11. It's against the Titans. I will say I'm not scared of the Titans defense at all. They haven't allowed a ton of points to quarterbacks, but it's because running backs destroy them, right? And Drake Maye did just have a big game against the Titans last week with, nearly 280 total yards with 62 of those coming on the ground, 2 passing touchdowns. But thing is, Jones isn't running all too much this year, so he's going to have to score on the ground probably. But my biggest worry is that Jonathan Taylor just takes over this game and Daniel Jones doesn't have to do anything. But Jones has scored 22 fantasy points in each of the last 2 weeks. He's definitely a startable guy. There is just risk that comes with it.
Yeah, you just have to accept it's a floor play more than a ceiling play, right? I mean, that's just basically what you're doing with Daniel Jones. You're going to get the safe play. He's going to make the plays. He'll probably find a way to get 2 touchdowns. And that's what happened last week, even with Taylor scoring 3 times in the game. So the numbers have happened. They've not always happened where Taylor and Jones get theirs, but I think now you're looking at a potential where you can, because the Titans just stink so much against everything. They're the worst team, I think, in the NFL. So I think that's what you're going to see here this week.
Now, we both have Caleb Williams in our top 12. I have him right there at 12. So I have Justin Herbert at 10, Daniel Jones at 11, Caleb Williams at 12. After Jaxson Dart for you at 10, you have Caleb Williams at 11. His week 7 performance was really, really bad, right? Against the Saints, only scores 4.6 fantasy points. It was all the run game for the Bears in that game and nothing happening in the passing game. It is every other game, though, that Caleb Williams has a good game. I don't know if we're going to stick with that, but week 1, good game. Week 3, good game. Week 6, good game. So hopefully in week 8, we can get a good game after a bad week 7. But the Ravens are allowing the second most fantasy points to quarterbacks this season. I do think Caleb Williams could bounce back. I don't expect a huge week, but I think anywhere from 17 to 20 points is reasonable.
Yeah, I think the thing about Caleb Williams, again, he gets another chance to return kind of home. And, he's more of a DC guy. And DJ Moore is also coming home to Baltimore and Maryland. So that's all the good stuff here. I think there's some good vibes here. I don't know if the Ravens went into a secret lab and tried to fix a lot of the things wrong with their defense. I don't know if they can magically heal everybody that's out there. So it's hard to know, right? You expect them. They're a good team. They're going to make some adjustments, make things a little tougher. But what I liked about the Bears, they got the running game going the last couple of weeks. That's going to open up the passing game a little bit more for Caleb Williams. We know how that progresses for Ben Johnson. We saw it with the running game in Detroit, turning into Jared Goff points. I think that happens again here. Let's hope the weather or anything is not really a factor. But, yeah, Caleb Williams has been an every other week guy, but the Bears are hot. They're going to move the ball, get it done. Again, if they get Lamar Jackson, I actually think it's better for Caleb Williams because then it may not be a struggle, right, on the Ravens side, and then you're going to have to put up points on the other side if Lamar Jackson does stuff to the Bears defense. So I'm hopeful. I want to trust Caleb Williams. He's a little volatile. He's been that way all season long, but as Michelle pointed out, this should be an on week for an inconsistent quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I have Justin Herbert in my top 10. Like I said, he falls just outside of your top 12. So we will get to Herbert and his matchup against the Vikings and the rest of our quarterback rankings right after a quick break.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
This episode, Locked On Fantasy Football, is also brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone. That's of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players in fantasy football and what we want to come through, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, Michelle, it is time to dive into deeper part of our quarterback rankings. This is where it gets a little dicey. You got people on bye, as you mentioned, most notably Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff. I mean, some of the other quarterbacks, Kyler Murray, you might need a little replacement. You might be okay, but still, you got to figure out how to play these quarterbacks on the back end, also considering Superflex and 2 QB leagues. So Justin Herbert, I think of the rest, best of the rest, I think he's rather safe. I know it's hard to say that because the Vikings' pass defense is tough, but he was terrible for much of the game against the Colts, but he just ended up throwing more than 50 times. I never thought I'd see a Jim Harbaugh team just want to throw they were close to 60 times in that game. That's why you had Gadsden go off and all these guys do their thing. Is that going to be enough to get it done against the Vikings, who just gave up a perfect passer rating to Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I don't expect a huge game out of Herbert like last week, but I put together a couple of good games in a row here in terms of fantasy after going a pretty long stretch of disappointment. And like you said, the Vikings have been a decent defense against fantasy quarterbacks, but they've really faced pretty much no one. I mean, Michael Penix Jr., Jake Browning, Aaron Rodgers, Dylan Gabriel. Those are 4 of the quarterbacks they face. Those are not great fantasy quarterbacks. The 2, but Caleb Williams put up 24 points against the Vikings in week 1. Jalen Hurts put up 24 fantasy points against them in week 7. So I like Herbert this week. I think if you have him, you got to play him, right? Like, I can't imagine you have a better option unless you picked up Dart, and maybe that is a question there that you would have between the two. Moving forward into our rankings, you have Joe Flacco at quarterback 11, actually quarterback 12, sorry. That's pretty high for Joe Flacco. I have him got quarterback 16. Why are you so confident in him this week?
I mean, Joe Flacco is kind of amazing. I mean, you look at a couple of years ago when he was with the Browns, he had 2 weapons, right? Amari Cooper and David Njoku. He peppered those dudes with targets because he knew where his bread was buttered, right? I mean, he knows where his bread's buttered here. It's Jamar Chase. and T. Higgins. But what I like about Flacco, he's also incorporating a third target of late in Noah Fant at tight end. So the Jets stink. Sauce Gardner might miss his return to Cincinnati here with an injury. So if they're not having Gardner, I know their defense has played better in the past 2 weeks, but they've faced the Broncos on the road, who are not the same type of offense, and they faced the Panthers on the road. Well, they were on the road, the Panthers, and it wasn't the same offense. But I think the Bengals are a little bit more put together. I think just having those receivers, right? Chase and Higgins and Fant coming on, if he's any bit of a consistent factor here behind those guys, they needed a third target. That's great, but he's just going to be relentless and throwing the ball downfield. He's getting the ball out quickly. I don't think he has to worry about the Jets pass rush, and I think he'll be a little motivated. We talk about the Aaron Rodgers revenge game. Don't forget Joe Flacco played for the Jets, and he's going to keep showing these teams up, all these teams that just wrote him off. And again, the tour of Joe Flacco is something spectacular and something weird in fantasy, but I think you just ride it. I just really love Flacco working with those weapons in this matchup.
Now, this next guy we're going to talk about, he is only ranked this high because of all the buys and all the injuries, right?
Yeah.
And it's Michael Penix Jr. I have him at quarterback 12. You have him at 13. And a big reason for this is he gets the Dolphins defense that, has been atrocious. They held Dylan Gabriel in check because Judkins went off. So maybe Bijan Robinson steals all of the touchdowns. But I do think Michael Penix can put together a solid game. We only have 2 good fantasy games from Penix so far this year, but I do think we get the third solid one this week against the Dolphins.
Yeah, he's at home, and the Dolphins, look, I know they stink against the run, but Bijan can also make things happen. We know in short passes, he can do all the work for Michael Penix. He can take a 5-yard pass and go the distance, and that counts in the Penix column. And then great matchup for Drake London and Kyle Pitts. Even Darnell Mooney is an option here if you're really hurting. Mooney did come alive a little bit against the 49ers. They're not near the pass defense the 49ers are, and Penix is at home. We love that for the young quarterbacks. Being at home, much like Bo Nix here, he's still a little bit better. He's just more comfortable. They don't have to worry about the weather and the elements in Atlanta, hot, cold, wind, any of that stuff. So, and the Dolphins, I don't know, they could be just on the verge of quitting here. It's just pretty ugly, and they get the Ravens next week on a short week. It could be it for Mike McDaniel here pretty soon.
Now, for my quarterbacks 14 and 15, they play in the same game this week against each other. Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love. I have Rodgers at 14, Love at 15. You have them back to back as well in your rankings. You have Jordan Love at 15 with Aaron Rodgers at 16. So you're slightly leaning Love in this matchup. I'm leaning Rodgers. The thing is, I'm going with the narrative here, right? The Rodgers revenge game. I'm going with that. And at least we have a couple big games from Rodgers this year, 2 games with 4 touchdowns. I don't think they're going to be able to run too well against the Packers. And like Jordan Love, he's not doing enough, right? Like he's had good matchups against the Bengals and the Cardinals and Washington earlier, but I was looking at the wrong list. Against the Bengals and the Cardinals and Washington earlier. Never mind. I was perfect. And the Lions. And he is still only averaging 17 fantasy points per game the last 2 weeks against the Bengals and the Cardinals. 14 points, 13 points. So the Steelers can be beat up. We just saw it against Joe Flacco last week. But I would rather just go for the upside with Rodgers than the floor play of Love.
Yeah, I don't know what to think of this matchup. It's really confusing me. I'm going to say that. And that's why they're smack dab in the middle of the rankings of the 32 quarterbacks. Well, there's not 32 this week. There's more like 26. But you look at it in this matchup and you say, I'm not sure, right? The Steelers have had games where they've had 6 sacks and swarmed the quarterback and destroyed everything and looked good. Then they had meltdowns against Joe Flacco and some other quarterbacks here. So I don't know what you're going to get, right, from this matchup at all. It could be an ugly defensive struggle with Micah Parsons and TJ Watt taking over. It could be some running. It could be a field goal fest in this one. So my inclination is to stay away from both. If I had to go with anyone this week, I do actually like the Rodgers and the Steelers to win this game. So I would maybe lean there. I know I had Jordan Love ranked 1 spot ahead, but I think that's more so because the tight end matchup is good on each side. So that's going to be what it comes down to. Who gets the 2 tight end touchdowns in this game? The Packers, we gave up 2 to Trey McBride last week. we know what the Steelers did with their tight ends last week as well. So I think that's what it comes down to. And we'll get to those tight ends in a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to get to the tight ends pretty much right now. I just want to bring up one last thing. Brock Purdy, if he returns this week, I do think is a playable guy. I have him at 17. You have 18 for Mac Jones or Purdy, whichever one plays. But if Purdy's back, he has Kittle. If Ricky Pearsall's back too, like I feel good about that. And I think like it's a playable guy, right? It's not a super high ceiling against the tougher passing defense, but Sam Darnold was able to just handle it last night. So we will now transition to our fantasy tight end rankings for week 8 right after a quick break. We are nearly halfway through the NFL season, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel offers people numerous ways to play. You can build parlays, you can try player props, and even put in wagers for the live lines during games. It honestly can make watching any football game exciting when you have a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, so the tight ends on bye in week 8 include Trey McBride, Sam Laporta, Brock Bowers, if you were to have been back, but it's good he has the bye to get him healthy, hopefully, for afterwards. And then the Rams, Seahawks, and Jaguars tight ends, if you were starting any of them for whatever reason. But, McBride and Laporta being out hurt at the top, but we still have some really good players here at the top of our list. We both have Tyler Warren against the Titans at number 1. We both have Jake Ferguson against the Broncos at number 2. I have Tucker Kraft at 3. You have him at 4 against the Steelers. And then I have Kincaid at 4, which you have at 3 against the Panthers. And we both are sitting with George Kittle at number 5. Let's start with Dalton Kincaid because he missed last week. And it was not a pretty showing from that Bills offense. And Josh Allen has been thriving with Dalton Kincaid on the field. 3 passing touchdowns to him this year. His last game, Kincaid's last game, was 6 receptions, 108 yards. I think Kincaid's a must play and a safe play this week if he's back healthy.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, and then if you're really hurting, you could go the Dawson Knox route if Kincaid doesn't play, because the Panthers are that bad against the tight end. Yeah. Now, I know Mason Taylor didn't come through, but that was not Mason Taylor's fault. That was the quarterback's fault in that matchup. You're not going to have that issue with Josh Allen. He's slightly better than the combination of Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor. He's like, if you smash them into one, he would be a superior quarterback still. So look at it. Kincaid is a key to this offense, right? You mentioned it. They struggle without him. They need him because their receivers still kind of stink. Like, we're still talking about, are the Bills going to trade for a receiver? Like, come on. This is never ending here. Maybe Amari Cooper will come out of retirement for them. But when you look at it, it's like Kincaid is their best receiver, and the Panthers cannot cover the tight end. So the numbers were anomalous because the Jets stink last week. But look at it. It's really good stuff here with tight ends against the Panthers. And there's a lot of matchups like that this week where you can exploit.
Now, we've got to talk about George Kittle, who we both have as tight end 5. He had 0 targets in week 7, his first game back. I 100% would feel confident playing him if Brock Purdy is back. I mean, you're going to play him anyways. It's George Kittle, and you've been waiting for him, right? But I'm saying, like, I 100% feel confident he would have a good game if Brock Purdy is back. If it's Mac Jones still back there, I might move him down a couple spots. If Purdy comes back, I might move him up a couple spots. I think that's how big of a difference it is between which quarterback is back there, because Mac has been preferring, the Kendrick Bournes and the Jake Tonjes and targeting Christian McCaffrey like crazy. So, we just got to wait to see who the quarterback is. But either way, you're going to be starting George Kittle. But he'll have a much bigger game if Purdy's there.
Yeah, I mean, the matchup isn't the best. I mean, I know Sam Darnold fought through it a little bit, and they still ended up with 2 rushing touchdowns, with kind of curbed Darnold's value other than the Jackson Smith-Njigba score. So when you look at that, the Texans are not the totally shut down. You can move the ball against them. Look, Kittle's not going to have 0 catches again. I think that was a little bit by design, where they said, until they can stop Christian McCaffrey. And Atlanta did not. Atlanta had a great pass defense. So you could see a bit of a carbon copy of the game plan because it's almost identical, except it's on the road. So I think they have to get Kittle involved in the passing game a little bit more. You want to avoid those corners anyway, so I think you'd want to throw in the middle of the field. Kittle's a mismatch nightmare for this defense anyway. So I think they have to get Kittle more involved in the passing game to get the job done. He's great as a blocker. We love it, but it doesn't get us fantasy points. So please throw to him. Thank you.
Yes, and I will be at the game, so I'm going to give him good luck. Okay. All right, giving Purdy and Kittle good luck. Now, number 6, we both have Travis Kelce. He's been involved. You're going to keep playing him. I have Dallas Goedert at 7. You never know what the Eagles are going to do in any given week, but we know his upside, and the rest of these tight ends, I mean, are all risky, right? So if we're going to take a risk on a guy, I'm going to go with Goedert, who's been plenty of good fantasy games this year. Your 7 through 10 is very, very interesting, I'll say, for your rankings. You have Cade Otton, number 7 against the Saints. Kyle Pitts, number 8 against the Dolphins. We got Mark Andrews, number 9 against the Bears. And Pat Freiermuth, number 10 against the Packers. I'm much, much lower on all of those guys outside of Kyle Pitts, who I'm not like super pumped about, but I have him at 11. I'm out on those other guys, though. So tell me why you're in.
Yeah, I think it's all about the matchups, and the data really adds up when you look at the tight end matchups going forward. I mean, I could just point to that Steelers game, right? All of a sudden, everybody was looking good at tight end there. I mean, everybody's 2 guys, Freiermuth and Jonas Smith, but they scored the 3 touchdowns in that game. But I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be, wait, I haven't used Freiermuth enough. Like, I need to throw to this dude a little bit more. When you have a game like that, and the matchup says, right? I mean, he's similarly built to Trey McBride, so that could also be a tough matchup there for the Packers coverage, so that's something to look at. Yeah, Pitts, I just like. The Dolphins stink, and Pitts actually had 10 targets against the 49ers, so one of his better games. Mark Andrews, I'm hopeful it's either A, Lamar Jackson, or B, Tyler Huntley in there. I would expect him to get a lot more regular targets, so to speak, if it's Huntley versus, I don't want to see Cooper Rush. If Cooper Rush isn't there, I'm down on all the Ravens. And then Mason Taylor, look, it's been terrible, but again, let's give him another chance. It's a even better tight end matchup this week against the Bengals. If you don't get it done there, we're going to keep blaming the quarterback. So I'm hoping Tyrod Taylor gets the start from the beginning and sees Mason Taylor open. This one, and Noah Fant, again, he's been involved sneakily a little bit more. So again, some of these are just pure matchup-based plays. Again, tight end is the one position we're kind of hurting at most here, I would say, this week.
Yeah, I'll say the only one I'll chime in here about is Pat Freiermuth. Just you might be getting hoodwinked by the Bengals a little bit. For whatever reason, Pat Freiermuth destroys the Bengals the last 2 years, and it's the only team he can beat up on. Throughout this year, though, last week was the only game he scored more than 4 fantasy points. And over the last 2 years, all of his top 3 fantasy days have come against the Bengals in those 3 Bengals games. There's only been 5 games he's scored more than 9 fantasy points over the last 2 years, and 3 of those have come against the Bengals. But a few guys that I'm a little bit higher on, I have Oronde Gadsden at number 8 against the Vikings. He's just, coming on as that rookie. He's been getting the targets the last 2 weeks and playing a lot of snaps, over 75% of the snaps last 2 weeks. Every week his snaps go up. So I think he's a good play this week. I have Mason Taylor at 9. If it's Tyrod Taylor, I feel much better, but Bengals are so bad against tight ends that it's hard not to go with the guy across from them, right? And you have Mason Taylor at 11. Obviously, if it's Fields, we're going to feel a little bit more nervous about that. And then at number 10, I have Evan Ingram. I just think it's going to be a high-scoring game between Denver and Dallas. And, it's not pretty out there. I mean, it's not like I'm ranking Ingram ahead of these amazing tight ends. And I just think that he's been more involved in this Denver offense. It hasn't turned into great production, but he got 8 targets this past week. I think he'll be involved against the Cowboys' bad defense. And if he can just score a touchdown, he'd be fine.
Yeah, Ingram, I don't mind as much. I mean, you heard one name not mentioned. It's TJ Hawkinson. I think we just give it up because, again, he's not had a good game at all this year. I mean, he almost had a touchdown, but he didn't, so it didn't count. So it didn't matter.
He had one solid one, and it was against the Bengals.
Yeah, So that kind of tells you something. Dallas Goedert, look, I'm a little afraid now that A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are going. I mean, a lot of Goddard's game came at the expense of not having those guys going. I think Jalen Hurts is going to say, I can rip into the Giants. I need to build a lead with these guys. So that's my one concern with Dallas Goedert. And the Vikings, by the way, shut down Dallas Goedert last week. He wasn't involved as much. So a little concerned for a rookie in that matchup with Brian Flores. If they're going to look at those numbers and see if they're going to take them out. But I have no problems if you really want to go Ingram. You can also go Zach Ertz because the Commanders basically have no one. They got to throw to someone in garbage time against the Chiefs. So there's a few things here, but tight end has been a hard position. I think you're loving life if you have one of those elite guys that we mentioned every week that are coming through, especially Warren and Ferguson. But everything else has been a bit of a grind, and we're going to see that again.
Yep, absolutely. That will be it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We will be back tomorrow getting into our running back rankings for week 8. Don't miss it. Have a great night. Bye, y'all.